Everyone, welcome to another What I Would Have Done Thursday, and today I thought it would be a bit interesting to briefly talk about a very bad film that is sort of recognized for being really poorly done, and is one that I think is definitely worthy of talking about because it is one of those films where it already suffers from its premise. So without further ado, let us talk about, or at least let me talk about, Theodore Rex. Um, yes, this film stars none other than Whoopi Goldberg, uh, and a T-Rex named Theodore. Hence, you get Theodore Rex. Um, and basically, they end up teaming up to solve crime. So you got a dinosaur and Whoopi Goldberg going on solving crime, and that's your movie pretty much. So you could already see why this fails in so many regards, and also this is live action, so a lot of the uh, dinosaur is really puppet working, or at least all of the dinosaurs pretty much are. Because technically within this world, I guess dinosaurs exist somehow, or at least coexist with humans, for some odd and bizarre reason that really doesn't make a whole lick of sense. And again, I'm fine with premises really not making any sense, and I am all for thinking out of the box, but there's just a point where you think too beyond the box and you're not even in a genuinely creative zone anymore. You've just gone to the point of this is kind of what somebody, puts together while they're drunk or something, It's not something that somebody came up with that really knew what they were doing. Um, I almost feel like somebody had to have been a little bit out of it somehow to have come up with such a premise, because it is really ridiculous, especially when you look at the whole setup, the whole plot involving the villains. It's just unbelievably ridiculous, and um, the characters end up suffering because of the premise. The humor ends up suffering because of the premise, and pretty much everything else that exists within this movie largely suffers because this whole idea was just a really stupid idea. So, basically, what I would have done is obviously change the premise. And then I think, had they have done that, the results would have lended itself a whole lot better with everything else that's involved within this film. Um, so I think that if they wanted to make a film of anthropomorphic life forms in the form of dinosaurs, I think it would have been best had they created a completely separate world from reality. This is why it doesn't really make sense within a live action context, because you have to kind of wrap your head around the whole concept into how this sort of relates to the real world, you know. And it's really hard to get behind this kind of an idea when you have things that are sort of part of reality and then you have things that are completely out of whack and don't really make any sense or don't really establish a universe all too well. So I think had this all just been purely animation, had all the characters been dinosaurs, except they kind of wear people's clothing and act like humans and have their kind of own human world, I think that would have worked a lot better. Like very similar to Zootopia. That kind of a premise I think would have suited itself a whole lot better. Also, this film has a problem, I think, with with trying to establish a sort of a story with the premise as well. obviously because the way in which they have these villains who want to somehow take over the world and create a master race and stuff like that. It's just beyond believably stupid. Uh, so I think what could have been an interesting premise is like sort of similar to Zootopia, where you have the fox pairing up with the rabbit. You could have a meat eater dinosaur pairing up with uh, a vegetarian dinosaur, and they sort of could have uh, went out and sort of solved some sort of mystery. I think that would have been a whole lot better. And I think what also would be interesting is if they could make um, multiple species of dinosaurs villains and do the same thing with the heroes. Um, so again, it gives off the impression that you don't really know who is really on your side anymore, because sometimes appearances can be deceiving and whatnot. And I think had that been the more underlying idea to get across kind of to the audience, I think that would have actually been a lot more effective. And I think you can only do that again if you make all of the characters dinosaurs as opposed to humans. Also, uh, I think that having a meat eater and a vegetarian dinosaur working together, could have brought a lot of different life lessons and things like that that could have been gotten across to kids. And that's the problem too, actually, with the film when in and of itself, is because it doesn't really know who it's really trying to appeal to. On the one hand, it is supposed to be very kid and childlike in its presentation, but then maybe it'll have a little bit of somewhat adult humor in there, but it really doesn't work, and it just doesn't give you anything to really relate to. So I think had they gone with the premise of it being for kids, had all of the characters be dinosaurs, make it animated, have the villains be multiple different species of dinosaurs, have the heroes be multiple species of dinosaurs, and have a meat eater and a vegetarian working together and learning lessons along the way, that I think would have been a lot more of an interesting and engaging story than whatever they present in this film. And it's sort of difficult to describe this film to you, only because it's just unbelievably bizarre in the way it's executed. And it really doesn't add up or make a whole lick of sense. Uh, and there are scenes where you just go, what is going on here? And who thought of this idea? And who brought it to the forefront? And, I mean, it's unfortunate, but those are the kinds of movies that do get made sometimes. And it definitely didn't work out to this film's advantage at all. But I think with the suggestions that I have, I think this would have been a lot more successful project and would have actually been a lot more genuine. And you could have even had Whoopi Goldberg do a voiceover of one of the dinosaurs or something. I mean, there could have been tons of angles into which they approached this. And again, I think relying too much on live action and creating the whole premise of a human and a dinosaur working together is just kind of it just goes a little bit too overboard on the ridiculousness and the stupidity. So yeah, those are really my thoughts as to what I would have done with this particular film. But I'd be more than happy to hear what anybody else has to say. If there are any questions, comments, concerns, I'd be more than happy to answer them. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year. And I hope to see you on the next video. I will be delaying Fridays as well as Saturdays video. I should be back on Sunday, however, if not Monday. But until then, everybody,